With
Emily Thornton, Alwyn Fisher, Jason Morris, Luke Blentlinger, and your host, Anna Cameron.
Contestant number 1, were you close to your family, maybe really close to your father?
Well, my father was the great Light Horse Henry Lee, a Revolutionary War hero. I do believe family is important, but my father's absence was kind of hard throughout my life. Luckily, I had my mother. She was a great woman who taught me about faith and respect. I don't know what I would do without her if I didn't have her.
Contestant number 3, what is your family like?
Wow, way to start out on a touchy subject. I guess I can get it over with. So I had this really cool dad. He was a lawyer and a Supreme Court justice, but then he just kind of died. I don't really know what happened. So now I was fatherless, and my family didn't have an income, and there were 11 of us. So then our family friend Thomas Ewing stepped in, and he was a prominent senator, and he was kind of a big wig in the Whig Party. See what I did there? But I don't really know who my dad was. It's still kind of unclear, so I guess that's okay.
Contestant number 2, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Settled down in old Clarksburg, Virginia, with a sweet lover, eating my fruit, peaches on a nice plantation, and shooting my guns while riding Little Sorrel.
Contestant number 4, do you have any children?
Yeah, I got 4 kids. There's little Frederick, got Junior, call him Buck though, Ellen, Jesse. You know, the missus and I, we got pretty busy. But I would say I've been a pretty good father, and the whole reason for that is because my father was a great father to me. He supported me in all the decisions I made, so I do the same with my kids. He persuaded me to go to West Point, and that was the best decision I ever made. If I had not joined the Army, I would not have met my roommate, and that means I would not have met his sister, who is now my wife.
Contestant number 4, so you're married.
Technically, yes, but I can always make room for you in the Grant bedroom.
Contestant number 3, what is your career?
I'm a god of war. I fight, I win, I burn it to the ground. Yeah, that march to the sea, that was all me, baby. I went from the ATL to Savannah and destroyed everything.
Sherman adopted and employed the strategy of total war. After the successful Atlanta campaign, Sherman led 60,000 men on a 300 miles of destruction. His goal was to loot and burn everything in his path, including railroads, weapons, armories, farmhouses, crops, livestock, and more. He also wanted to sever the Confederate government from the rest of the South's western states and frighten the Southern population into abandoning the Confederate cause. He was ruthless. He was operating deep behind enemy lines without a supply line. This was considered revolutionary. However, he did not employ his entire army. Instead, he split his army up and sent half under General George H. Thomas to return to Nashville in order to deal with Confederate General John Hood, who was threatening Sherman's supply line. President Lincoln and Ulysses S. Grant had doubts about the march, but trusted Sherman's decision. Sherman said it in regards to the march, "We need to make the young, the old, the rich and the poor feel the hard hand of war." At the end of the march, Sherman captured Savannah and presented the city and referred to it as a Christmas present in a telegram to President Lincoln.
Contestant number 2, how tough are you?
How tough am I? I ate a bowl of nails for breakfast without any milk. I also got my arm amputated at Chancellorsville.
Contestant number 1, what was the biggest battle you fought in?
The biggest war I've ever fought in was Antietam. It really only lasted a day though, but it was one of the bloodiest days of American history.
Contestant number 2, what happened at Fredericksburg that got all you Southerners hyped up?
One of my favorite battles. Lee and I were facing this bozo named Ambrose Burnside. We were all behind protective walls on the hill. Burnside just kept sending troops up and they kept getting killed. It was kind of sad and pathetic in a way. They lost 12,000 men while we only lost 5,000 men. This battle really shook things up for us and gave us a real chance to win the war.
Contestant number 4, what's your favorite possession?
That's a hard one. I would have to say that it's any type of alcohol that I have at any given moment. For instance, yeah, that's the good stuff.
Contestant number 3, tell me about your school life.
I went to the United States Military Academy at West Point. Pretty much big shot. I graduated at the top-ish of my class. I mean, I worked really hard and I wanted to be there and I wanted to be all that I could. So right after I graduated, I was appointed to the 2nd Lieutenant in the 3rd Artillery. I got sent down to Florida to fight those damn Indians. And you know what? With all that moving around, I got a good lay of the land. And then that kind of helped me when I was a general. So, I know the South, I'm gonna conquer the South. And then I got shipped off to Cali to fight up in the Mexican War. Did not like California, not even those California girls.
Contestant number 1, what is your idea of a romantic night?
My idea of a romantic night would probably be staying home and cleaning my boots and lint rolling my jacket. Looking sharp is romantic, right?
Contestant number 2, what did you do before you became a god of war?
I taught at the Virginia Military Institute from August of 1851 until the outbreak of the Civil War in April 1861. Next, I found my calling during the Mexican War.
Contestant number 2, how did the students like you there?
They didn't like me at all. I was considered an unlikable teacher. Little did they know that I would become a great of the Civil War.
Contestant number 4, if you were an ice cream flavor, what would you be?
Oh, that's an easy one. Whiskey flavored. However, I bet contestant number 1 over there would be strawberry or some fruity crap.
Contestant number 3, who is your best friend?
I mean, I like Grant a lot. I once said Grant stood by me when I was crazy and I stood by him when he was drunk, which was all the time. But I kind of consider myself a lone wolf, a hombre solo, one tootsie roll. I mean, I'm a loner. But I was kind of hoping, do you want to be in my wolf pack?
I need your love.
Contestant number 1, if you could have one word to describe you, what would it be?
Dedicated. I'm a man that where if I start something, I sure as hell will finish it. I attended West Point and there was no way I was going to slack off to do the minimum. You get nowhere in life if you do the minimum. In the Battle of Antietam, my army and I were outnumbered 2-1. I realized that we had less people, but if you don't try, you will never succeed. I'm dedicated when it comes to everything I believe in.
Contestant number 3, what is your fondest memory?
Oh, there are so many, but I'd have to go with the Battle of Shiloh. It was the bloodiest day. It was my first real test under Grant. It was time to show him what I got.
On the morning of April 6, 1862, the Confederates launched an attack. Sherman dismissed the military intelligence he was given, refusing to believe that Confederate General Albert Johnston would leave his base in Corinth. He failed to reinforce his perimeter. It was said that possibly Sherman didn't want to appear overly cautious due to his previous criticism in Kentucky. One day he remarked to his wife, "They'd call me crazy again." Despite being caught unprepared, Sherman gathered his troops and kept order in the chaos. Sherman proved to be a key player in the attack. He helped keep the men from retreating and helped launch a successful counterattack. During the battle, he was wounded in the hand and shoulder and had 3 horses shot down underneath him, yet he still continued on. This battle helped to restore Sherman's reputation.
Contestant number 2, what were some traumatic experiences you had?
Wow, this is a tough one. My father and my brother died when I was just young. Later, my mother died when I was only 7 years old. I was an orphan living from home to home. Growing up without a father and a mother was very tough. Another experience of the war was watching all my men die. This was very saddening. It made my heart very heavy. I've been through it all, but probably the most traumatic experience in my lifetime I've had was watching my wife die in childbirth. Neither my wife nor my child to be lived.
Contestant number 3, what is your most embarrassing moment?
I'd have to go with back in Kentucky. I was all paranoid that I didn't have enough men. And I may have stretched the truth a little bit when I was talking to Washington. I mean, the rebels probably weren't that bad, but oh well. So I said, screw this, and I got relocated. And then I went to Ohio for some R&R. And they may call it a nervous breakdown, but I like to call it a man knowing his limits.
Contestant number 4, what are you good at?
Well, other than drinking, I would say I'm a pretty good general. After I resigned from the Army, I started to drink heavily and I became very depressed. But then Abraham Lincoln came up to me and he was like, hey dude, can you join the Army again? I need some good generals. And I said yes. I knew that this was my opportunity to better myself and become a man again. I think I regained my manhood at the Battle of Chattanooga. Boy, was that a beautiful win. You can see it. I had the best ideas there. The thing I told my troops to do was that, oh yeah, rush up on that ridge. Apparently that's a big deal now, some big history in the history books. Many people were impressed with me because I had the balls to do things that other people didn't have the balls to do. I was one of the only ones that actually stand a chance against contestant number 1 over there.
Contestant number 1, what was school like for you?
Well, you see, I pretty much ran West Point. I was that stinking good. Okay, just kidding, but I was a very good student. I was the only one to graduate from West Point without any daggum demerits. I also had the highest ranking at West Point, which was a cadet adjutant.
Contestant number 2, do you like your job and how do people look at you?
I loved it. Many historians believe I was the most gifted tactical commander in U.S. history. Although I was always the right-hand man of Bobby, we were the dynamic duo. No one could stop us when we worked together. I mean, did you hear about us at Chancellorsville?
Lee and Jackson, leading the Army of Northern Virginia, were facing a serious threat by the Army of the Potomac, led by General Joseph Hooker. They were outnumbered 138,000 to 61,000 and knew the Army of Northern Virginia couldn't win the battle going head-to-head, so Lee decided to split his troops. Jackson, miraculously, took 20,000 soldiers and snuck up through the forest right behind the Union, while Lee had 40,000 attacking. All 138,000 of the Union were startled and tried to run, but it was too late. They were surrounded by Lee's and Jackson's forces and had nowhere to go. The casualties of the Union were 17,000, while the Confederates' casualties were only 13,000.
Contestant number 3, do you have a nickname?
They call me Kump. My dad had some weird Indian fetish, so he gave me my middle name after a Shawnee chief named Tecumseh, so I guess that's where it came from.
Contestant number 4, what is the one thing that you did that you are proud of today?
I remember it like it was yesterday. It was 1863. Lincoln told me that we needed to take the Mississippi River. For a while, I believed that what he wanted me to do was not possible. I had to make a hard decision. I decided to split up my troops and take half of them in attacking the northern part of Vicksburg and the other half attacking the southern half of Vicksburg. I was very proud of this maneuver, and others were very impressed also. After I did this, the procedure seemed to catch on a little bit. I guess people just thought it was cool or some shit.
Contestant number 1, what happened at Gettysburg? I thought you were the greatest god of war.
Okay, well, you see, Gettysburg was one heck of a battle. I was not planning on it to end the way that it did. My Army of Northern Virginia had just had an amazing battle at Chancellorsville, so we were in high hopes that we'd do good at this battle. I concentrated my army around Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, to approach Union General George G. Meade's forces. On July 1st, we drove Union defenders through Gettysburg to Cemetery Hill. The next day, my army and I struck the flanks of the Union line, resulting in severe fighting at Devil's Den, Little Round Top, the Wheat Field, Peach Orchard, Culp's Hill, and East Cemetery Hill. We gained ground but failed to dislodge the Union host. On the morning of July 3rd, fighting raged at Culp's Hill, with the Union regaining its lost ground. That afternoon, after a massive artillery bombardment, we decided to attack the Union Center on Cemetery Ridge and was repulsed with heavy losses in what is known as Pickett's Charge. Sadly, our second invasion of the North had failed. It was truly upsetting for people's lives to be lost and not to even win the battle in the end, but sometimes you have to be the one to take the first step.
Contestant number 2, what humbled you during the war? In other words, did you keep yourself from not being stuck up?
I didn't want to be a stuck-up general. The 7 days battle made me realize that nobody can be a perfect general. I failed in that battle, but it also made me a better human being. I don't like the losing side too much. God got me through everything. I believe that it was in His will that I did bad in the battle. I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason though.
All contestants, why should I pick you?
Honey, I should be chosen because I am a badass. I believe that I was the greatest god of war. I'm a man of my words, and I will rescue your pretty little heart from distress.
Pick me. Please pick me. Please, please. I am so lonely. I'm so lonely. I just want someone to love me. And I mean, I may be a little on the crazy side. That's like what my wife told me, but I'm really not that bad. I'm pretty cool. And Grant is a drunk, and so is Lee. And who the heck even wants Stonewall? Do you want to marry a stone wall? I mean, really, no. Like, seriously, pick me.
It's pretty obvious why you should pick me. For starters, it just so happens that I'm on the side that won the war. I basically won it for us. I'm a wonderful lover. I drink a lot. And I'm sort of a jerk, and women these days seem to like that.
I've thought about this a lot, but I'm gonna have to go with contestant number 4.